The crack of a gunshot split the air as Lily Taylor ducked behind an overturned wagon, her heart hammering against her ribs like a wild Mustang. Boise, Idaho Territory, 1878, once just another dusty stop on her journey west, had become the place where her life would be auctioned to the highest bidder. Her brother's gambling debts had sealed her fate, and now she had nowhere left to run. The morning dawned crisp and clear over Boise, the late September sun casting long shadows across the main street as Lily swept the wooden porch of Caldwell's General Store. At 22, she had already weathered more storms than most women twice her age. Orphaned at 16, she had followed her older brother Thomas across half the country, chasing his dreams of striking it rich in the West. "Miss Taylor, could you help with these flour sacks, Mrs.?" Caldwell called from inside the store. Lily tucked a strand of honey blonde hair behind her ear and hurried inside. Working at the general store for the past 8 months had been a godsend after Thomas's latest venture had failed. The Caldwells were kind employers, providing a small room above the store as part of her wages. "Of course, Mrs. Caldwell," Lily replied, lifting a sack with practiced ease. Though slender, she had grown strong from years of hard work. The bell above the door jingled, and Lily glanced up to see her brother stumbling in, his clothes rumpled and eyes bloodshot. Her heart sank. Thomas hadn't come home last night again. "Lily," he slurred, making his way toward the counter. At 28, Thomas Taylor had the haggard look of a man a decade older, his once handsome features ravaged by whiskey and poor choices. "You shouldn't be here," she whispered, guiding him toward the back room. "Mr. Caldwell said you're not welcome after last time." Thomas gripped her arm, his fingers digging painfully into her flesh. "I need money, Lily, just a little to tide me over." The familiar request made her stomach twist. "I don't have any. My wages go to our room and food." His face darkened. "You don't understand. I'm in trouble. Real trouble this time." Before Lily could respond, the bell jangled again and 3 men entered the store. Their purposeful stride and cold eyes immediately set Lily's nerves on edge. "There he is," said the tallest man, his voice carrying the hint of a southern drawl. Victor Holloway was known throughout Boise as a businessman who dealt in gambling halls, saloons, and other enterprises that operated in the shadows of respectability. "Mr. Holloway," Thomas straightened, attempting dignity despite his disheveled appearance. "I was just coming to see you." "Were you now?" Holloway's smile never reached his eyes. "That's mighty convenient, considering your 3 days passed when you promised to settle your debts." Lily stepped forward. "Whatever my brother owes, we'll pay it. We just need time." Holloway's gaze slid to her, appraising in a way that made her skin crawl. "Your brother owes me $500, Miss Taylor. Do you have that kind of money?" The sum made her breath catch. It would take her years to save that much. "I didn't think so," Holloway continued when she remained silent. "But perhaps we can come to an arrangement." He turned to Thomas. "Your sister could work off your debt." "What kind of work?" Lily asked, though she feared she already knew. "My establishments always need pretty girls," Holloway replied. "Or if that doesn't suit, there are men looking for wives who would pay good money to secure one without the courtship." "No," Lily said firmly. "I won't." "Done," Thomas interrupted, avoiding her shocked gaze. "She'll do it." "Thomas," Lily gasped. "You can't possibly." "It's settled then," Holloway said as if she hadn't spoken. "Bring her to the Silver Dollar at sundown. We'll settle the paperwork then." As the men departed, Lily turned to her brother, tears of fury and betrayal burning her eyes. "How could you?" "I'm not livestock to be traded." Thomas finally met her gaze, desperation etched in every line of his face. "They were going to kill me, Lily. They found me last night, roughed me up, said next time they'd put a bullet in my head." He grabbed her hands. It's just for a year or two. Then you'll be free and I'll have time to make things right." She pulled away, disgust churning in her stomach. Get out, and don't come back." "Lily, I said leave." After Thomas slunk away, Lily collapsed onto a crate, her mind racing. She could run, but where? She had no family, no friends outside of Boise. With Thomas's debt unpaid, Holloway would hunt them both down and the consequences would be worse. Mrs. Caldwell found her there, still staring into space. "Lily." "What's wrong, child?" Through choking tears, Lily explained the situation. "Mrs. Caldwell's kind face hardened with each word. "That's slavery, plain and simple," she declared. "Your brother has no right." "But what can I do?" Lily asked helplessly. "They'll kill him if I run." Mrs. Caldwell squeezed her hand. "Let me speak to my husband. Perhaps we can help." But by mid-afternoon, it became clear that even the Caldwells' generosity couldn't match Holloway's price. Word had spread through town about the auction, to be held that evening at the Silver Dollar Saloon. Several men had already expressed interest in purchasing a contract for Lily's services, whether as a saloon girl or a bride hardly seemed to matter. As sunset approached, Lily changed into her best dress, a modest blue cotton with white lace at the collar. If she was to be sold, she would at least face it with dignity. Mrs. Caldwell pressed a small knife into her hand. "Hide this in your boot," she whispered, "just in case." The walk to the Silver Dollar was the longest of Lily's life. Thomas was waiting outside, shifting nervously from foot to foot. "Lily." She brushed past him without a word, pushing through the batwing doors into the smoky interior. The usual saloon chatter died as she entered, dozens of pairs of eyes turning to assess her value. Holloway stood at the bar, a satisfied smile spreading across his face as he spotted her. "Miss Taylor, right on time." He gestured to a chair beside him. "Have a seat while we wait for all interested parties to arrive." Lily remained standing. "Let's be clear, Mr. Holloway. I'm here because my brother is a coward who'd rather sell his sister than face the consequences of his actions. But I am not property." A low chuckle rippled through the crowd and Holloway's smile tightened. "Spirited. That'll fetch a premium." He nodded to one of his men, who grabbed her arm and forced her into the chair. The next hour passed in a nightmare blur as men arrived, examined her like a horse at auction, and placed their bids. Thomas sat in a corner, drowning his shame in whiskey. Lily sat rigidly, refusing to cry, refusing to beg. The bidding had reached $300, offered by a man old enough to be her grandfather, with breath that reeked of tobacco and decay. "$300 going once," Holloway called, clearly disappointed at the final price. The batwing doors swung open and a hush fell over the room. A tall figure stood silhouetted against the dying light, the outline of a wide-brimmed hat and broad shoulders unmistakable. "Pardon the interruption," said a deep voice as the man stepped into the saloon. "I understand there's a business transaction taking place." Lily's breath caught as the newcomer came into view. Dressed in a dark coat over a button-down shirt, with worn leather chaps and a gun belt slung low on his hips, he had the weathered look of a man who spent his life under the open sky. His face, partially shadowed by his hat, revealed strong features and piercing blue eyes that surveyed the room with calm authority. "You're just in time, Mr. Jameson," Holloway said. "We were about to conclude the bidding at $300. Preston Jameson." Someone murmured, and Lily detected a note of respect or perhaps fear in the voice. The cowboy approached, spurs jingling softly with each step. He stopped before Lily, and though his expression remained neutral, something in his eyes, a flash of anger quickly controlled, told her he wasn't just another bidder. "Miss," he said with a slight tip of his hat. Then he turned to Holloway. $500. A collective gasp went up from the crowd. Holloway's eyebrows shot up. Well now, that's certainly generous. The lady must have caught your fancy. Preston Jameson didn't smile. Let's just say I have strong feelings about certain types of business. He reached into his coat and withdrew a leather pouch, dropping it on the table with a heavy thud. 500 in gold. I believe that settles the debt in full. Holloway's greedy eyes fixed on the pouch. He opened it, quickly counting the contents before nodding. It does indeed. He pulled out a paper from his vest. Just need to draw up the contract for the lady's services. That won't be necessary. In a motion almost too quick to follow, Jameson snatched the paper, tore it neatly in half, then quarters, then eighths, letting the pieces flutter to the sawdust-covered floor. The debt is paid. The lady is free to go. A tense silence fell over the saloon. Holloway's hand twitched toward his gun, but something in Jameson's steady gaze made him reconsider. "Very well," Holloway said finally, his voice tight with controlled fury. "The debt is settled." He turned to Thomas, who had sobered considerably at the unexpected turn of events. "But you, Mr. Taylor, would be wise to leave Boise tonight. I don't appreciate time wasters." Thomas nodded frantically, already backing toward the door. Jameson turned to Lily, offering his arm. "Miss Taylor, would you allow me to escort you from these premises?" Still stunned by the rapid turn of events, Lily placed her trembling hand on his arm. The solid warmth of him felt like the first real thing in this surreal evening. "Why?" she whispered as they stepped outside into the cool night air. "Why would you do that for a stranger?" His expression softened slightly in the moonlight. "Because no person should be treated as property, Miss Taylor. Not ever." He released her arm gently. "You're free to go where you choose now." Before she could respond, Thomas rushed up to them, relief written across his features. "Lily." Thank God. The sound of Lily's open palm connecting with her brother's cheek echoed down the quiet street. "Don't you dare thank God. Don't you dare speak to me at all." She was shaking with rage. "You were going to sell me, your own sister." Thomas rubbed his reddening cheek. "I was desperate." "They were going to kill me." "So you decided my life was worth less than yours." Lily's voice broke. "Go away, Thomas. Mr. Holloway was right about one thing: you should leave Boise tonight, and don't expect me to follow you this time." Her brother's face crumpled, but after a moment's hesitation, he nodded and slunk away down the dark street. Lily watched him go, a lifetime of emotions warring within her. When he disappeared from view, she suddenly realized how alone she truly was. She turned back to find Preston Jameson still standing there, his expression unreadable. "I suppose I should thank you, Mr. Jameson," she said, trying to keep her voice steady. "But $500 is a debt I couldn't possibly repay. I'm not asking you to." He adjusted his hat. "Consider it a stake against injustice, nothing more." Lily studied him, trying to understand. Nobody does something like that without reason. A shadow passed over his face. "Let's just say I've seen what happens when good people stand by and do nothing." He cleared his throat. "Do you have somewhere safe to stay tonight?" "I have a room above Caldwell's store. I work there." He nodded. "Then I'll see you safely home." They walked in silence through the darkened streets. Lily's mind whirled with questions about this mysterious cowboy who had appeared like something out of a dime novel to save her from a terrible fate. By the time they reached the general store, her curiosity overcame her caution. "Will you at least tell me why you were at the saloon tonight?" "It seems too fortunate to be coincidence." Preston hesitated, then said, "Mrs. Caldwell sent word about what was happening. I was passing through town and stopped at their place to deliver some cattle I'd driven up from the south. She mentioned your situation. You know the Caldwells well." "Mr. Caldwell and my father were friends many years ago." He tipped his hat again. "Good night, Miss Taylor. I wish you well." "Wait," she called as he turned to leave. "Where will you go now? I have a ranch about a day's ride north of here. I'll be heading back at first light." Lily nodded, uncertain what else to say. "Thank you again, Mr. Jameson." Something like a smile touched his lips for the first time. "Preston," he said. "My friends call me Preston." With that, he turned and walked away, his tall figure soon swallowed by the darkness. Lily climbed the stairs to her small room, her mind still trying to process everything that had happened. Only when she was safely inside with the door locked did she finally allow the tears to come, crying for the brother she had lost, the fear she had endured, and the uncertain future that now stretched before her. Dawn broke over Boise, painting the sky in washes of pink and gold as Lily tied her few possessions into a bundle. Sleep had been elusive, but in the quiet hours of the night, she had made her decision. She couldn't stay in Boise, not with the memory of last night's humiliation still fresh, and not with the whispers that would surely follow her now. Mrs. Caldwell was already in the store when Lily came downstairs with her bundle. The older woman took one look at her and sighed. "So you're leaving us," she said, not a question. "I have to," Lily replied. "After last night, people will talk. People always talk, child. It doesn't mean you should run." Lily set her bundle on the counter. "I'm not running, I'm choosing a new path." She took Mrs. Caldwell's weathered hands in hers. "You and Mr. Caldwell have been so kind to me. I'll never forget that." Mrs. Caldwell squeezed her hands. "Where will you go?" "The stage to Oregon leaves this morning. I have a little saved, enough for the fare and to get established somewhere new." The older woman's eyes held concern. "That's a hard journey for a woman alone. I've been taking care of myself for a long time." Mrs. Caldwell regarded her for a long moment before turning to the cash drawer. She counted out several bills and pressed them into Lily's hand. "Your wages, plus a little extra. Don't argue," she added when Lily began to protest. "Consider it a wedding gift that we never got to give you." Lily's eyes welled with tears as she embraced the woman who had been the closest thing to a mother she'd had in years. "Thank you." As she stepped outside to wait for the stagecoach, Lily noticed a commotion down the street. A wagon had overturned, spilling crates across the road. The driver and several townspeople were struggling to right it. Among them was Preston Jameson, his strong shoulders straining as he lifted one end of the wagon. Lily hesitated, then walked toward the scene. By the time she arrived, the wagon was upright again, and Preston was helping to reload the scattered goods. He looked up as she approached, surprise briefly crossing his features. "Miss Taylor," he greeted her, wiping his hands on his trousers. "You're up early." "As are you," she replied. "I thought you'd be headed back to your ranch by now, had some business to finish in town." His gaze fell to her bundle. "You're leaving Boise," she nodded. "There's nothing for me here anymore." Something flickered in his eyes, concern perhaps, or understanding. "Where will you go?" "Oregon, I think. I hear Baker City is growing, might be work for someone who knows dry goods." Preston ran a hand over his jaw, seeming to wrestle with some internal debate. Finally, he said, "My ranch could use someone with store experience. The nearest trading post is a shambles, and I've been thinking of starting something better." Lily stared at him, caught off guard by the unexpected offer. "You're offering me a job. You don't even know me." "I know you stood your ground in that saloon with more dignity than most men I've met. I know the Caldwells speak highly of you," he shrugged. "Sometimes that's enough to go on." "Is this charity, Mr. Jameson? Because after last night, it's a business proposition," he interrupted. "Nothing more. The position comes with room and board and fair wages." His expression softened slightly. "And it's a good deal closer than Oregon." Lily studied him, searching for any sign of deception. All she found was straightforward honesty in those blue eyes. "Why would you help me again?" "Maybe I just recognize someone who's had too few choices in life." He nodded toward the stagecoach office. The stage doesn't leave for another hour. Think it over. With that, he tipped his hat and walked away, leaving Lily to her thoughts. The Jameson Ranch sprawled across several hundred acres of Idaho's high country, a day's ride north of Boise, as Preston had said. Lily had made her decision quickly, recognizing the opportunity for what it was, a chance to start fresh away from Boise, but not so far that she couldn't find her way if things didn't work out. The journey had been mostly silent. Preston focused on the road ahead while Lily absorbed the changing landscape. As they crested a hill in the late afternoon sun, Preston finally broke the silence. "There it is," he said, nodding toward the valley below. Lily leaned forward, taking in the view with widening eyes. The ranch house was larger than she had expected, a two-story structure of timber and stone with a wide porch wrapping around three sides. Several outbuildings and corrals dotted the property, and in the distance, cattle grazed on the rolling grassland. A small creek wound through the valley, bordered by cottonwoods that shimmered gold in the autumn light. "It's beautiful," she breathed. A hint of pride crossed Preston's face. "Been in my family for 20 years. My father built most of it, but I've added on since I took over. Your father doesn't live here anymore. He passed on 5 years ago." Preston's expression grew distant. "Influenza took both my parents within a month of each other." "I'm sorry," Lily said softly, understanding the loss all too well. He nodded his acknowledgement as he guided the wagon down the slope toward the ranch house. As they approached, a tall, lanky man emerged from the barn, followed by a wizened older fellow with a pronounced limp. "That's Frank Miller, my foreman," Preston explained. "And the old-timer is Doc Simmons. Not a real doctor, but he knows more about treating man and beast than anyone within 50 miles. The men watched curiously as Preston helped Lily down from the wagon. "Miss Taylor will be joining us," he announced. "She'll be managing the trading post we're setting up in the old cabin." Frank's eyebrows shot up. "Trading post? Since when are we since now?" Preston cut him off with a look that discouraged further questions. "Doc, could you show Miss Taylor to the guest room? She's had a long journey." Doc Simmons's weathered face creased in a friendly smile. "Come along, miss. We don't get many ladies visiting, but the room's kept clean." As Lily followed Doc into the house, she heard Frank's low voice asking Preston questions she couldn't quite make out. Whatever this arrangement was, it seemed she wasn't the only one surprised by it. The guest room was simple but comfortable, with a sturdy bed, a washstand, and a small writing desk beneath a window that looked out over the creek. Doc left her to settle in, promising that supper would be ready in an hour. Alone for the first time since leaving Boise, Lily sank onto the edge of the bed, the events of the past day and a half catching up with her. She had left behind everything familiar: her job, the Caldwells, even the painful memory of Thomas, to come to this remote ranch with a man she barely knew. Either she was incredibly brave or incredibly foolish, perhaps a bit of both. She washed away the dust of travel and changed into her second dress before making her way downstairs. The aroma of cooking food led her to the kitchen, where she found a plump woman with iron-gray hair fussing over a large stove. "You must be Miss Taylor," the woman said, turning with a spoon in hand. "I'm Martha Wilson. I cook and keep house for Mr. Jameson and the men." "Please call me Lily," she replied, immediately warming to Martha's motherly demeanor. "Can I help with anything?" Martha looked pleased at the offer. "You could set the table if you like. Dishes are in that cupboard there." As Lily arranged plates and cutlery on the long oak table in the dining room, she asked, "How many people live at the ranch?" "Well, there's Mr. Jameson, of course, and Frank Miller stays in the house as foreman. Doc has a room here too, on account of his leg making it hard for him to get around in bad weather. 3 cowhands stay in the bunkhouse most nights: Sam, Miguel, and young Billy, who's barely 18 but can ride better than men twice his age. And you? Do you live here too? I live in the small cabin out back. Been here since Mr. Jameson's father first built this place. Martha tested a pot of beans, then added a pinch of salt. Now tell me, how'd a young lady like yourself end up coming to work at a cattle ranch? Not that we don't need the feminine touch around here, mind you. Lily hesitated, uncertain how much Preston had shared or how much she wanted to reveal. I was working at Caldwell's general store in Boise. Mr. Jameson thought my experience might be useful for a trading post. Martha's knowing look suggested she sensed there was more to the story, but she didn't press. Well, whatever brought you here, I'm glad for the company. It gets lonely being the only woman amongst all these men. Supper was a lively affair, with the cowhands filing in from the bunkhouse to join those who lived in the main house. They eyed Lily with curiosity but were polite, removing their hats and minding their language. Preston sat at the head of the table, mostly silent but watchful, his presence commanding respect without demanding it. After the meal, while Martha and Lily cleared the dishes, Preston asked her to join him on the porch. The evening was cool, the first stars appearing in the darkening sky. He offered her a seat in one of the rocking chairs, then leaned against the porch rail facing her. I realize I've brought you here with little explanation, he began. I want to be clear about what I'm proposing. A trading post, you said, Lily prompted when he paused. He nodded. There's an old cabin about a quarter-mile downstream that my father used to use as a hunting lodge. It's solid, with good walls and a stone fireplace. With some work, it could be converted to serve the ranch and neighboring homesteads. We're 20 miles from the nearest proper store, and folks around here would appreciate not having to make that trip for basic supplies. And you want me to run it? Yes. You'd order stock, keep the books, serve customers. The same work you did at Caldwell's, but on a smaller scale at first. He paused. The truth is, this is something I've been considering for a while. Meeting you just made the timing seem right. Lily considered his words. The opportunity made sense, but she still felt there was more to it. And my accommodations. Martha mentioned I'm the only woman besides her. You'll stay in the guest room until the rooms above the trading post are finished. I've already spoken to the men about showing proper respect. His eyes met hers directly. You have my word that you'll be safe here, Miss Taylor. Lily, she corrected him. If I'm to stay, you might as well use my name. A ghost of a smile touched his lips. Lily, then. And the real reason you brought me here, Preston, I still find it hard to believe it was purely business. He was quiet for a long moment. Let's just say I understand what it's like to need a fresh start. His eyes drifted to the darkened valley. My father built this ranch after my mother lost 3 babies back east. He said she needed a new horizon to look at, a place without memories haunting every corner. He straightened as if he'd said more than he intended. Rest tonight. Tomorrow I'll show you the cabin and we can discuss what needs to be done. As he turned to go inside, Lily called after him. Thank you, not just for the position but for what you did in Boise. No one stood up for me like that before. He paused, his profile silhouetted against the light from the window. Everyone deserves that, Lily. Everyone. Then he was gone, leaving her alone with the night sounds of the ranch and a curious feeling that her life had changed in ways she couldn't yet understand. The days fell into a steady rhythm as autumn deepened around the Jameson ranch. Each morning, Lily rose with the sun to help Martha prepare breakfast before heading to the cabin that would become the trading post. Preston had assigned 2 of the ranch hands to help with the renovations, and the work was progressing quickly. The cabin itself was larger than Lily had expected, with a spacious main room that would serve as the store area and a back room for storage. A narrow staircase led to the upper floor, which had been divided into 2 rooms, a bedroom and a small sitting area. The men had repaired the roof, replaced broken windows, and built sturdy shelving along the walls. Preston himself often joined the work, proving as skilled with a hammer and saw as he was with horses and cattle. "Where did you learn carpentry?" Lily asked one afternoon as she helped him install a counter near the front door. "My father believed in knowing how to do everything yourself," Preston replied, carefully measuring a board before cutting. "Said a man who has to hire out every job is at the mercy of other men's schedules and prices." "He sounds like a practical man." Preston's expression softened with memory. "He was hard-working, fair-minded." He set down his saw. "What about your parents? You never mentioned them." Lily focused on sanding the edge of a shelf. "They died when I was 16. Wagon accident." "Thomas was 22 then, just back from trying his luck in the goldfields. He took me with him when he headed west again." She swallowed past the unexpected tightness in her throat. "He wasn't always like what you saw in Boise." The drinking and gambling came later after too many failed schemes. Preston was quiet for a moment. Loss changes people. Some rise above it, others get dragged under. "Is that what happened to you? Rising above?" His blue eyes met hers with an intensity that made her breath catch. "I'm still working on that part." He turned back to his work, effectively ending the conversation. As the trading post took shape, Lily compiled lists of inventory they would need, drawing on her experience at Caldwell's. Preston rode to Boise twice to place orders, returning with wagons of goods that they carefully cataloged and arranged on the new shelves. Word spread quickly through the scattered homesteads and neighboring ranches that Jameson's trading post would open with the first snowfall. Lily was surprised by how many families lived within a day's ride, isolated from each other by distance, but connected by the shared challenges of frontier life. One evening in late October, as frost painted the grass silver under a full moon, Preston invited Lily to ride out with him to check on a section of fence that had been damaged by a fallen tree. The crisp air carried the scent of pine and wood smoke as they rode side by side, their horses' breath forming clouds in the cold. "You're a good rider," Preston observed as Lily easily guided her mount over a fallen log. "Thomas insisted I learn," she replied. "Said we couldn't afford for me to travel by stagecoach every time we moved." She glanced at him, which was often. They rode in companionable silence until they reached the damaged fence line. Preston dismounted to examine the broken rails, and Lily joined him, holding the horse's reins. "Should be an easy fix," he said, testing a post. "I'll send Frank and Miguel out tomorrow." As they remounted and turned back toward the ranch, Preston said, "The trading post will be ready to open in another week. Are you nervous?" Lily considered the question. "A little, but mostly I'm excited. It feels good to be building something instead of just getting by." "You've done remarkable work," Preston said, his usual reserve softening. "Most people wouldn't have accomplished half as much in the time you've been here." The unexpected praise warmed her more than it should have. "I've had help." "You've had resources," he corrected. "The vision and determination were all yours." They crested a hill and Preston reined his horse to a stop. Below them, the ranch house glowed with lamplight, smoke curling from its chimney into the star-filled sky. The outbuildings made dark silhouettes against the silver-washed landscape, and the creek caught moonlight like scattered diamonds. "Beautiful, isn't it?" Preston's voice was quiet, almost reverent. "It's like something from a dream," Lily replied honestly. "I never imagined living somewhere so peaceful." Preston turned to look at her, his face half shadowed in the moonlight. "I'm glad you stayed, Lily." The simple statement hung between them, laden with unspoken meaning. Lily felt a flutter in her chest that had nothing to do with the cold. "I'm glad too." For a moment she thought he might say more, but he simply nodded and urged his horse forward. As they rode back to the warmth and light of the ranch house, Lily found herself wondering what life might have been like if they had met under different circumstances, if she were just a shopkeeper, and he just a rancher, with no debt of gratitude between them. The trading post opened on the first day of November, with a light snow falling as if nature itself had decided to honor Preston's original timeline. Ranchers and homesteaders from miles around came to see the new establishment, many bringing their families for the occasion. Martha had prepared a feast of stew, fresh bread, and apple pie that was served on trestle tables set up in the cleared area outside the cabin. Lily moved among the customers with growing confidence, helping them find what they needed and recording purchases in the new ledger. Preston stayed mostly in the background, watching with evident satisfaction as his investment in both the trading post and in Lily herself proved sound. "You've done the impossible, Miss Taylor," Frank Miller commented as he helped restock a shelf of ammunition that had sold quickly. "Turned a hunting cabin into a proper store and got the boss to socialize all in one day." Lily glanced at Preston, who was deep in conversation with a gray, bearded rancher from the North Valley. "He's not usually one for gatherings," Frank chuckled. "Preston. He'd rather face a stampede than a social event. Been that way since his folks passed. Keeps to himself mostly." He gave her a considering look. "Though he seems to make an exception for you." Before Lily could respond to that loaded observation, a commotion outside drew their attention. A rider was approaching at speed, his horse lathered despite the cold. "That's Jim Hawkins's boy," Frank said, frowning. "Something's wrong." The young man, barely out of his teens, dismounted in a rush. "Mr. Jameson," he called, spotting Preston through the open door. "Raiders hit our place. Took all our horses and shot Pa when he tried to stop them." Preston was already moving. "How bad?" "Doc Edmonds is with him, but it don't look good. Ma sent me to warn everyone, said they were headed north." Preston turned to Frank. "Get the men, armed and ready in 5 minutes." To the gathered ranchers, he said, "Any of you willing to ride with us?" Almost as one, the men stepped forward, grim determination on their faces. "What about the women and children?" Lily asked, seeing the fear in the faces of the families who had come for a day of celebration and now faced potential danger. "They'll stay here," Preston decided. "The trading post has thick walls and good sight lines. Frank, leave Miguel and Billy to stand guard." Within minutes, the yard was a flurry of activity as men checked weapons and mounted horses. Preston disappeared into the trading post's back room, returning with a rifle and a revolver that he handed to Lily. "You know how to use these?" he asked, his voice low and urgent. "The rifle, yes. The revolver, not as well. Point and squeeze," he said simply. "But it shouldn't come to that. The raiders are likely headed for the pass to the north. We'll intercept them before they get anywhere near here." Lily gripped the weapons, trying to project more confidence than she felt. "Be careful." Something flickered in Preston's eyes: concern, determination, and perhaps something deeper. For a heartbeat, Lily thought he might say more, might even embrace her. Instead, he merely nodded, his hand briefly touching her shoulder before he turned away. As the men rode out, snow swirling around them, Lily organized the women and children inside the trading post. Martha took charge of keeping everyone calm, brewing coffee and serving leftover stew, while Lily and Miguel secured the doors and windows. Hours passed with no word. The short winter day faded to dusk, and still the riders didn't return. The children grew restless, the women anxious. Lily found herself checking the window every few minutes, straining to see through the gathering darkness. "They'll be back when they've dealt with those raiders," Martha assured her, bringing a cup of coffee. "Preston knows what he's doing." "I'm not worried," Lily said automatically, though her tight grip on the rifle suggested otherwise. Martha's knowing look said she wasn't fooled. "It's all right to care for him, you know. Heaven knows that man could use someone to worry about him for a change." Lily felt heat rise in her cheeks. "It's not like that. He gave me a job, a place to stay, and looks at you like you hung the moon," Martha finished with a raised eyebrow. "I've known Preston Jameson since he was knee-high to a grasshopper. I ain't never seen him look at anyone the way he looks at you when he thinks no one's watching." Before Lily could formulate a response, shouts from outside drew their attention. She hurried to the window, rifle ready, but lowered it immediately when she recognized the returning riders. Her heart leaped at the sight of Preston at their head, apparently unharmed. The door burst open, bringing a gust of cold air and the first of the returning men. Preston entered last, his face grim beneath a layer of trail dust. "We caught up to them at Eagle Creek," he reported to the anxious crowd. "Recovered most of the stolen horses and sent the raiders packing with a few less men than they started with. Anyone hurt on our side?" Martha asked, already preparing to tend wounds, scratches and bruises mostly. Sam took a bullet to the arm, but Doc Edmonds patched him up at the Hawkins place. Preston's eyes found Lily across the room, and some of the tension seemed to leave his shoulders at the sight of her safe and sound. "Jim Hawkins will recover too, though it was a close thing." As the excitement died down and families began to leave for their own homes, Preston pulled Lily aside. "You handled things well here," he said quietly. "There wasn't much to handle, thanks to your quick response." She searched his face, noting the fatigue etched there. "You should rest. You look exhausted." A rare smile briefly lit his features. "Is that your professional medical opinion, Miss Taylor? It's my human opinion, Mr. Jameson." He held her gaze a moment longer than necessary, then nodded. "The trading post is yours to run as you see fit. I trust your judgment." With that cryptic remark, he turned to help the last of the visitors with their preparations for departure. That night, after everyone had gone and the trading post was quiet once more, Lily sat by the fire in her new quarters above the store, reflecting on the day's events. The raid had shaken everyone, reminding them of the frontier's harsh realities. But it had also revealed the community's strength, how quickly they had united against a common threat, and it had shown her a side of Preston she had only glimpsed before. His immediate decision to help a neighbor, his calm leadership in a crisis, the trust he had placed in her to protect those left behind all spoke of a man with deep principles and quiet courage. Martha's words echoed in her mind. "I ain't never seen him look at anyone the way he looks at you." Was it possible that Preston Jameson, who had already given her more than she could ever repay, might care for her as more than just an employee or someone he had rescued? The thought both thrilled and terrified her. After Thomas's betrayal, she had promised herself she would never again be dependent on anyone, never be vulnerable to having her life upended by another's choices. Yet here she was, living on Preston's property, working in a business he had created for her, surrounded by people who answered to him. But it didn't feel like dependency, she realized. From the beginning, Preston had treated her as an equal, valuing her skills and respecting her decisions. He had given her a fresh start without demanding anything in return. As the fire burned down to embers, Lily came to a decision. She would repay Preston's generosity, not with deference or endless gratitude, but by making the trading post so successful that his investment would be returned many times over. And perhaps, in time, she would find the courage to discover if the looks Martha had noticed might lead to something more. Winter settled over the Idaho high country, transforming the landscape with blankets of snow and ice that glittered in the pale sunlight. The trading post flourished despite the harsh weather, becoming not just a place for supplies but a gathering spot where isolated homesteaders could exchange news and companionship. Lily thrived in her role, expanding the inventory to include items specifically requested by the women of the area: fabric, sewing notions, medicines, and books. She started a small lending library with volumes donated by Preston from his father's collection. And on Saturday afternoons, the trading post rang with the laughter of children who came for the story hour she had instituted. Preston rarely interfered with her management of the store, though he often stopped by on the pretext of checking supplies or delivering mail that had come in from Boise. Lily came to look forward to these visits, to the quiet conversations they would have after the customers had gone. "You've created something remarkable here," he told her one evening in mid-December as they sat by the trading post's fireplace. Outside, a blizzard howled, but inside was warm and snug, scented with pine boughs Lily had gathered to decorate for Christmas. "We created it," she corrected him. "It was your idea, your investment, but your heart," he replied softly. "That's what brings people back, not just the goods, but the welcome they find here." Lily felt warmth rise in her cheeks that had nothing to do with the fire. "You make it sound like I'm performing some great service. I'm just treating people as I'd want to be treated. A rare quality in my experience." The firelight cast shadows across his strong features, softening the usual reserve. In moments like these, Lily glimpsed the man beneath the capable rancher: thoughtful, occasionally wry, carrying old wounds that had never fully healed. "Will you join us for Christmas?" she asked impulsively. "Martha and I are planning a dinner at the trading post for anyone who can make it through the snow. Nothing elaborate, but—" "I'd like that," he said, surprising her with his quick acceptance. "It's been a long time since Christmas was more than just another day at the ranch." "Not since your parents," he nodded, his gaze fixed on the dancing flames. "My mother loved Christmas. She'd spend weeks preparing, baking, decorating, making gifts by hand. After she died, my father couldn't bear to celebrate, and I guess I followed his example." Lily's heart ached for the loss she heard in his voice. "Perhaps it's time for new traditions." His eyes met hers, a mixture of vulnerability and hope in their blue depths. "Perhaps it is." Christmas at the trading post exceeded even Lily's expectations. Despite the snow, nearly 20 people managed to make the journey, bringing dishes to share and gifts to exchange. Martha outdid herself with a roast turkey and all the trimmings, and Frank Miller revealed a hidden talent for fiddle playing that had everyone dancing in the cleared space of the main room. Preston arrived early to help with preparations, dressed in a clean black coat that emphasized the breadth of his shoulders and the lean strength of his tall frame. Lily, wearing her best dress, a deep green wool that Martha had helped her alter to fit properly, felt a flutter in her stomach when his gaze lingered on her appearance. "You look beautiful," he said simply, handing her a small package wrapped in brown paper and tied with string. "Merry Christmas, Lily." "You didn't have to," she began, but he shook his head. "I wanted to. Open it later when you have a moment to yourself." Throughout the evening, Lily found her attention repeatedly drawn to Preston. He seemed more relaxed than she had ever seen him, laughing at Frank's stories and even joining in a dance when coaxed by one of the homesteaders' wives. Yet his eyes often sought Lily's across the room, a private communication amid the communal celebration. It was well past midnight when the last guests departed, leaving only the ranch residents to clean up. Martha, exhausted but pleased with the evening's success, soon headed back to her cabin with Doc Simmons gallantly escorting her through the snow. "I'll see you safely back to the main house," Preston told Lily as he helped her bank the fire. "Actually," she replied, suddenly nervous, "I thought I might open your gift first if you'd like to wait." Something like pleasure flickered across his face. "I'd like that." They sat on the small sofa near the dying fire, a respectful distance between them. Lily carefully untied the string and unfolded the brown paper to reveal a small, hinged wooden box of polished cherry wood. Inside, nestled on a bed of velvet, lay a silver brooch in the shape of a lily, the petals delicately etched and centered with a tiny pearl. "Preston," she breathed, lifting it carefully from the box. "It's exquisite." "It was my mother's," he said quietly. "One of the few pieces of jewelry she brought west with her. My father gave it to her on their first anniversary." Lily looked up at him, stunned by the significance of the gift. "I can't accept this. It should stay in your family. I want you to have it." His voice was gentle but firm. "It suits you, beautiful but strong, capable of blooming even in harsh conditions." The tenderness in his words made her throat tighten with emotion. "Thank you. I'll treasure it always." She pinned it carefully to her dress, then reached beneath the sofa to retrieve a package of her own. "I have something for you too, though it seems inadequate now." Preston unwrapped the gift to find a hand-knitted scarf in deep blue wool that matched his eyes, along with a leather-bound journal. "I noticed your old one was nearly full," Lily explained as he ran his fingers over the journal's cover. "Martha helped with the scarf. She taught me to knit while you were away on that cattle drive last month." "No one has made anything for me since my mother died," he said, his voice rough with suppressed emotion. "Thank you, Lily." The vulnerability in his expression made her bold. "You've given me so much, Preston, not just material things, but a chance to rebuild my life, to find purpose again. I don't know if I can ever truly repay that." "I never wanted repayment," he said, his gaze intensifying. "What I did in Boise was extraordinary," she finished for him. "You saved me from a terrible fate, then offered me a new beginning when you barely knew me. Why?" Preston was silent for a long moment, seemingly wrestling with how much to reveal. "When I saw you in that saloon, standing tall despite everything, I saw someone worth fighting for." He paused, choosing his words carefully. "I lost someone once, my sister. She was barely 17 when she ran off with a man who promised her the world and delivered nothing but pain. By the time I found her." His voice broke slightly. "She was working in a place like the Silver Dollar, sold into that life to pay her so-called husband's gambling debts. She died before I could bring her home." "Oh, Preston," Lily whispered, instinctively reaching for his hand. "I'm so sorry." "It was a long time ago," he said, though the pain in his eyes suggested it wasn't nearly long enough. "But when I heard what was happening to you, I couldn't stand by and let another woman's life be traded away like property. Not if I could stop it." Understanding dawned on Lily. "So the trading post, the job offer, it was all because of your sister." "At first, perhaps," he admitted. "But not anymore." His hand turned to clasp hers, strong and warm. "You've proven yourself a dozen times over, Lily. Your intelligence, your kindness, your determination, those are the reasons I'm grateful every day that you decided to stay." The air between them seemed to thicken with unspoken possibilities. Lily was acutely aware of his closeness, of the way the firelight caught in his dark hair and defined the strong lines of his face. "Preston," she began, uncertain what she meant to say but feeling that something important hung in the balance. A sudden gust of wind rattled the windows, breaking the moment. Preston released her hand and stood, his expression once again guarded. "It's getting late and the storm's picking up. We should head back to the main house before it gets worse." Lily nodded, trying to hide her disappointment at the abrupt shift. As they bundled up against the cold, she wondered if she had imagined the connection between them, or if Preston had simply decided it was a complication he didn't need. The blizzard intensified overnight, trapping everyone at the ranch for 3 days. Lily used the time to catch up on the trading post's ledgers and to plan inventory for the spring, when travel would become easier again. She saw little of Preston, who spent most of his time checking on the cattle with Frank and the other hands, ensuring the animals had access to feed despite the deep snow. When they did cross paths at meals or in the evenings, Preston was unfailingly polite but maintained a new reserve that puzzled and hurt Lily. Had she overstepped by asking about his sister? Or was he simply regretting the moment of openness they had shared on Christmas night? On the 4th day, as the storm finally began to abate, Lily was organizing stock in the trading post when the door opened, bringing a swirl of snow and a tall figure bundled against the cold. "You shouldn't be out in this weather," she chided as Preston stamped snow from his boots. "The path is barely cleared." "I needed to check on the trading post," he replied, unwinding his scarf, the blue one she had given him. She noted with a small thrill. "Make sure everything was secure after the storm. As you can see, we weathered it just fine." Lily continued stacking cans on a shelf, trying to maintain a casual demeanor despite her racing heart. "No customers yet, though I expect we'll see some once the roads are passable again." Preston moved closer, picking up a can she had missed and placing it in line with the others. "That wasn't the only reason I came," she stilled her back to him. "Oh, I owe you an apology," he said, his deep voice soft with regret. "I've been distant these past few days." Lily turned to face him, finding him closer than she had expected. "You don't owe me explanations, Preston. This is your ranch and I work for you. Is that how you see it?" His blue eyes searched hers. "Because I stopped thinking of you as an employee a long time ago." The frankness of his statement caught her off guard. "How do you think of me then?" A muscle worked in his jaw as he seemed to debate his answer. "As someone I've come to care for very deeply, someone I don't want to burden with my past or with expectations you might not welcome." Lily's pulse quickened. "Shouldn't I be the judge of what burdens or expectations I might welcome?" "Perhaps you should." His gaze dropped to the silver lily brooch she wore pinned to her dress. "I told you about my sister because I wanted you to understand why I intervened in Boise, but I've been afraid that knowledge might make you feel obligated in some way. Obligated to be grateful. To stay even if you wish to move on." He ran a hand through his hair, a rare gesture of uncertainty. "I don't want your gratitude, Lily." "What do you want?" she asked softly, taking a step closer. The air between them seemed to crackle with tension. "Something I have no right to ask for." Lily summoned her courage. "What if I offered it freely?" For a heartbeat. Neither moved. Then Preston's control seemed to break. His hands came up to frame her face with exquisite gentleness, his eyes searching hers one last time for permission before he lowered his mouth to hers. The kiss was tentative at first, a question rather than a demand. Lily answered by rising on her toes, her hands finding the solid warmth of his chest as she returned the kiss with all the emotion she had kept carefully contained for months. Preston made a sound low in his throat, his arms encircling her waist to draw her closer. The kiss deepened, igniting a warmth that spread through Lily's body like wildfire. She had been kissed before, but never like this, never with such tender reverence and barely restrained passion. When they finally broke apart, both breathing unevenly, Preston rested his forehead against hers. "I've wanted to do that since Christmas night," he confessed. "But I was afraid of rushing you, of presuming too much." Lily smiled, her hands still resting against the solid strength of his chest. And here I thought you were having regrets about our conversation. My only regret was not being honest sooner about my feelings." His thumb traced the curve of her cheek. "I love you, Lily Taylor. Not out of pity or misplaced responsibility, but because of who you are, your strength, your kindness, your determination to build something good no matter what life throws at you." The declaration, so simple and direct, brought tears to Lily's eyes. "I love you too," she whispered. "I think I have since that night you tore up those papers and set me free." He kissed her again, more urgently this time, and Lily lost herself in the sensation, in the knowledge that this remarkable man who had rescued her when she was at her lowest, but had never once made her feel less for it, returned her feelings with equal measure. When they parted again, Preston kept his arms around her, as if afraid she might disappear. "This won't be easy," he warned. "People will talk, say I took advantage or that you're after the ranch." "People always talk," Lily replied, echoing Martha's words from months ago. "It doesn't mean we should let them dictate our happiness." A slow smile spread across his face, transforming his usually serious features. "No, it doesn't." He brushed a strand of hair from her cheek. "So what happens now, Miss Taylor?" "Well, Mr. Jameson," she said, matching his playful tone, "I believe we continue building what we've started, the trading post, the ranch, and whatever this is between us." She gestured between them. "One day at a time. That sounds like a good plan." He glanced toward the window, where sunlight had finally broken through the clouds. "The storm's passing. Spring will be here before we know it." "A new beginning," Lily murmured, resting her head against his chest. "One of many, I hope," Preston replied, pressing a kiss to her hair. As they stood together in the trading post that had become a symbol of their shared vision, Lily felt a profound sense of rightness settle over her. From the ashes of her brother's betrayal had risen something beautiful and unexpected, a love founded on respect and mutual understanding, a future bright with possibility. The road ahead might not always be smooth, but with Preston beside her, she knew they would weather whatever storms came their way. After all, they had already survived the worst the world could throw at them. What remained was the joy of building a life together, day by day, season by season, in this wild and beautiful land they both now called home. Spring arrived in a riot of wildflowers and new growth, transforming the snow-covered landscape into a verdant paradise. The trading post grew busier than ever as homesteaders emerged from winter isolation, eager for supplies and social connection. Lily's reputation for fair prices and thoughtful inventory spread beyond the immediate area, bringing customers from as far as 20 miles away. Preston and Lily's courtship progressed in the public eye, subject to the inevitable frontier gossip, but ultimately accepted by those who mattered. Martha, of course, was delighted, taking every opportunity to remind them that she had seen it coming from the start. Frank Miller had simply nodded when Preston officially announced their relationship, saying, "About time, boss," with a knowing smirk. On a perfect June day, with the ranch in full bloom and the creek running high with snowmelt, Preston took Lily riding to a secluded meadow overlooking the valley. A picnic basket was secured to his saddle, and Lily suspected he had something special planned when she noticed he had shaved with extra care and wore his good shirt. The meadow was carpeted with blue lupine and golden balsam root, their colors rivaling the clear sky above. Preston spread a blanket beneath the shade of a lone pine tree, then helped Lily arrange the picnic Martha had prepared. "It's beautiful here," Lily said, taking in the panoramic view of the ranch and surrounding countryside. "How did you find this spot?" "My father brought me here when I was a boy," Preston replied, pouring coffee from a tin flask. "Said it was the best view on the ranch. He proposed to my mother in this very meadow. Lily's heart skipped a beat at the implication. It's a perfect place for important moments. Preston's eyes held hers, a mixture of love and nervous determination in their blue depths. That's what I thought too. He set down his cup and took her hand. Lily, these past months have been the happiest of my life. You've brought light and purpose back to the ranch, back to me. You did the same for me, she reminded him softly. You gave me a chance when I had nothing. You had everything that mattered: courage, integrity, determination. He squeezed her hand. I've been thinking about the future, about what I want, what I hope you want too. And what is that? Lily asked, though her racing heart already knew the answer. Preston reached into his pocket and withdrew a small velvet box, obviously not new but carefully polished. This was my mother's, he said, opening it to reveal a simple gold band set with a modest diamond. My father gave it to her when they decided to leave everything they knew and start fresh in the West. He moved to kneel before her on the blanket, the ring held between them like a promise. Lily Taylor, would you do me the honor of becoming my wife? Of building a life with me here, of facing whatever comes our way together. Tears of joy welled in Lily's eyes as she nodded, too overcome to speak for a moment. Yes, she finally managed. Yes, Preston, I will marry you. His face broke into a smile of such unguarded happiness that it took her breath away. He slipped the ring onto her finger, a perfect fit, as if it had been made for her, then pulled her into his arms for a kiss that sealed their promise. When they finally broke apart, both breathless and laughing, Preston kept his arms around her. I want you to know something, he said, his expression growing serious again. I'm not just asking you to be my wife. I want you as my full partner in everything: the ranch, the trading post, our life together. What's mine will be yours, legally and completely. The declaration moved Lily deeply, knowing as she did how rare such an equal partnership was, especially in the frontier where women often had few rights to property. I accept, she said solemnly, and I promise to be the best partner I can be in everything we build together. They were married 2 weeks later in a ceremony at the ranch house, attended by everyone from the nearby homesteads and neighboring ranches. Martha had outdone herself decorating the house with wildflowers and greenery, and Doc Simmons had polished his best boots to give the bride away. Lily wore a cream-colored dress ordered specially from Boise, with Preston's silver lily brooch pinned over her heart. Preston, standing tall and proud in a new black suit, watched her approach with such naked adoration that several of the women dabbed at their eyes. The circuit riding preacher performed a simple service, and when Preston kissed his bride, the assembled guests erupted in cheers and applause. The celebration continued well into the night, with food and dancing and enough goodwill to sustain the newlyweds through whatever challenges the future might hold. Later that night, alone in the master bedroom that was now theirs, Preston held Lily close beneath the quilt his mother had made decades earlier. Happy? He asked, pressing a kiss to her temple. More than I ever thought possible, she replied honestly. A year ago I thought my life was over. Now it feels like it's just beginning. It is, he assured her. We have everything ahead of us. As they drifted toward sleep, wrapped in each other's arms, Lily thought of all the twists and turns that had led to this moment: her brother's betrayal, Preston's intervention, the journey to a ranch she'd never heard of before. What had seemed like the darkest day of her life had ultimately led her to the greatest happiness. Not because Preston had rescued her, but because they had found in each other the perfect complement, the missing piece that made both their lives richer and more complete. In the years that followed, the Jameson Ranch prospered under their joint stewardship. The trading post expanded to include a proper post office, then a small schoolhouse as more families settled in the area. Preston and Lily welcomed a son they named James after Preston's father, and 2 years later, a daughter they called Rose. Thomas Taylor eventually wrote to Lily from California, where he had found work in the shipyards and finally conquered his demons. The siblings reconciled through letters, though Thomas never returned to Idaho, understanding that some bridges, once burned, could only be rebuilt so far. On their 5th wedding anniversary, Preston and Lily returned to the meadow where he had proposed. Their children played among the wildflowers while they sat together on the same blanket, watching the sun set over the land they had nurtured together. "Any regrets?" Preston asked, his arm around his wife's shoulders. Lily looked at their children, then up at the man who had torn up a contract and set her free, only to bind himself to her with ties far stronger than paper could ever hold. "Not one," she replied, leaning into his embrace. "Every step led us here. How could I regret that?" Preston kissed her then, with all the tenderness and passion of their first kiss and the deep, abiding love that had grown between them through seasons of joy and hardship alike. As dusk settled over the Idaho high country, painting the sky in shades of gold and purple, the Jameson family gathered their belongings and headed home together, secure in the knowledge that some bonds, freely chosen and lovingly maintained, were meant to last a lifetime.